In the sweltering summer of 1970, China pulsed with the fervor of the Cultural Revolution, a tumultuous campaign that upended lives under the banner of ideological purity. Cities buzzed with Red Guard rallies, while rural labor camps swelled with those deemed disloyal to the state. Families like mine, tethered to the military elite, were not spared. I was Nora Lee, 15 years old, the second daughter of Commander Lee, a man whose crisp uniform once symbolized unyielding authority. My mother, graceful and soft-spoken, trailed in his shadow, her world confined to housework and raising my older sister Emily and me. Our lives, once cushioned by privilege in a military compound, unraveled when my father was accused of political deviance, a vague charge that branded us enemies of the revolution. The notice came swiftly, a typed decree ordering our family's exile to a labor camp in the remote Northwest. The camp was a merciless sprawl of dust and toil, where the sun scorched the earth and the wind carried whispers of despair. My father, stripped of rank, worked alongside us, his face etched with silent fury. My mother, unaccustomed to labor, faltered under the weight of harvesting quotas. I, barely a teenager, bore the brunt of our survival. My hands blistered from wielding a hoe, my body ached from hauling water, and illness clung to me like a damp cloth. Fever swept through the camp, and I nursed myself through nights of delirium, my parents too weary to notice. Emily, however, was spared. At 18, she had been sent to a prestigious university, her academic promise a shield my parents fiercely protected. "Emily is our future," my father would say, his eyes avoiding mine. I swallowed the sting, believing my sacrifice was love. Years ground on, each day a test of endurance. My once soft hands grew calloused, my frame wiry from labor. At 17, a fall from a rickety ladder left me with a limp that never fully healed. Yet I pressed on, driven by a daughter's duty. My parents, aging under the camp's relentless demands, leaned on me, their gratitude unspoken. I scavenged extra rations, bartered with guards for medicine, and shielded them from the worst of the overseer's wrath. In those years, I ceased to be Nora, the pampered girl who dreamed of poetry and love. I became a shadow, hardened by necessity, my youth buried in the camp's unforgiving soil. Then, in a twist of fate, the tides of policy shifted. 1978, a national review of political cases cleared my father's name. He was reinstated as a commander through the intervention of old comrades, and his honor was restored. We returned to the city. Our old compound was now a faded memory. My father stood tall again, his uniform pristine, his voice commanding respect. My mother, her elegance revived, smiled at neighbors who once shunned us. But the homecoming was not mine to claim. Emily, now a radiant college graduate, became the daughter they celebrated. She endured so much, staying loyal despite our disgrace, my mother said, tears in her eyes. My father nodded, praising Emily's letters, which, they claimed, sustained them through exile. I stood silent, my years of toil unacknowledged. Emily, who had never set foot in the camp, was their pride, and her absence was rewritten as a sacrifice. I searched for my place in their eyes, but found only indifference. At a family dinner, my mother served Emily's favorite dishes, her laughter reserved for my sister's tales of university life. My father, his gaze stern, corrected my posture as if my rural habits shamed him. "You've grown coarse, Nora," he said, his words a blade. I nodded, my throat tight, the weight of their favoritism pressing down. Sensing my silence, Emily offered a pitying smile, her confidence unshaken. She had always been their star, her brilliance mirroring my dimming light. I wondered if they even remembered the camp, the nights I burned with fever so they could eat, the days I worked double shifts to spare them punishment. The city's clamor felt alien after the camp's stark rhythm. Neighbors whispered of my limp, weathered skin and fall from grace. I was no longer the commander's delicate daughter, but a relic of hardship, unfit for the life Emily so effortlessly claimed. Yet, a flicker of hope remained. Nathan, my childhood sweetheart, had vowed to wait for me. His letters, sparse during my exile, promised a future together. I clung to that promise, imagining a love that could redeem my losses. But the city held other truths that would shatter my fragile dreams and set me on a path I could not yet foresee. In the quiet of my room, I traced the scars on my hands, each a testament to my survival. The camp had taken my youth, but it had forged something else, a resilience I hadn't yet named, I didn't know then that my story was far from over, that betrayal and rebirth awaited, that I would one day rewrite my fate. For now I was Nora, the forgotten daughter, standing at the edge of a family that no longer saw me, in a world that demanded I prove my worth anew. The city's pulse, vibrant and unforgiving, greeted me like a stranger when we returned in 1978. At 30, I was no longer the delicate girl who had left the military compound 15 years earlier. The labor camp had carved me into something else, a woman with calloused hands, a faint limp, and eyes that held too many unspoken stories. My skin, once fair, bore the sun's harsh kiss, and my dreams of poetry had long faded under the weight of survival. Yet, a fragile hope flickered within me, tethered to Nathan, my childhood sweetheart. Though sparse during my exile, his letters promised love, a vow to wait until I returned. I clung to that promise, imagining it could mend the fractures of my past. Nathan had been my anchor before the camp, his warm smile a beacon in the chaos of my father's stern household. At 17, we'd stolen moments by the compound's willow tree, whispering of a future where love would outweigh duty. "I'll wait for you, Nora," he'd said, his hand clasping mine as the relocation order arrived. "No matter how long, we'll get married when you're back." Those words had sustained me through fevered nights and endless labor. But the city held a different truth that would unravel my heart with a cruelty I hadn't anticipated. I sought Nathan at his family's home, my steps hesitant on the polished stone path. The boy I'd loved had become a man, his frame taller, his eyes sharper, framed by the polish of a college graduate. He stood in a pressed suit, a far cry from the boy in patched shirts who'd dreamed with me. My heart leapt, then faltered, as his gaze met mine, not with warmth, but with a flicker of unease. "Nora," he said, his voice clipped, "we need to talk." The air grew heavy, and I braced myself, sensing the ground shifting beneath me. "Nora, let's call off the engagement," Nathan said, his words slicing through the quiet courtyard. "I'm a college graduate now, headed for a government post. You didn't even finish high school. We're not a good match." His eyes avoided mine, darting to the jasmine vines as if they held absolution. I stood frozen, the weight of his rejection pressing against my chest. "It's not just that," he continued, softer now, almost pleading. "I've met someone else, someone who understands my world. Emily." My sister's name landed like a stone, sinking into the silence between us. Emily. My older sister, the golden child who'd escaped the labor camp, her university degree a crown my parents adorned with pride. I pictured her, fair-skinned, poised, her laughter a melody that charmed every room. She'd been absent during our exile, her letters to my parents a lifeline they cherished, while my sacrifices went unspoken. Nathan's choice wasn't just a betrayal, but a theft, a claim on the sister who'd already taken so much. "Emily," I whispered, my voice trembling. "How long?" Nathan hesitated, then admitted, "Since last year. She visited me at college. We connected." The truth unfurled, raw and jagged. With her effortless grace, Emily had captivated Nathan while I toiled in the camp, my letters to him unanswered. I saw her now, not just as my parents' favorite, but as a rival who'd orchestrated her triumph. Her ambition, masked by charm, had always outshone me. Knowing he was mine, she'd cultivated Nathan's affection, her confidence bolstered by a life unmarred by hardship. Yet, beneath her poise, I sensed a flicker of fear of losing the pedestal our family had built for her, a need to secure her place by claiming what was mine. I returned home, my heart a tangle of grief and rage. My mother, arranging flowers in the dining room, barely glanced up. "You're back early," she said, her tone distracted. I wanted to scream, to demand why Emily's betrayal was invisible to her, but I held back, my camp-forged resilience steadying me. That evening, Emily arrived, radiant in a silk dress, her arm linked with Nathan's. My father clapped Nathan's shoulder, welcoming him like a son. "A fine match," he said, his eyes on Emily, oblivious to my presence in the corner. The wedding was a spectacle in a grand hall adorned with lanterns and roses. I was seated at the farthest table, a forgotten guest amid the city's elite. Whispers followed me, pity for the labor camp girl, scorn for my faded beauty. Emily, resplendent in white, glided through the crowd, her smile a blade that cut deeper with each glance. At her side, Nathan avoided my gaze, his guilt a shadow he couldn't shake. My younger sister Lily approached, her eyes glinting with malice. "You know," she said, leaning close, "I saw your letters to Nathan, begging for help when father was injured. I made sure he saw Emily instead. He deserved better than you." Lily's confession was a spark to dry tinder. She'd orchestrated Nathan's shift, her jealousy of my past affection fueling her sabotage. I stared at her, the sister I'd once braided hair with, now a stranger reveling in my pain. The room spun, the laughter and clinking glasses a mocking chorus. I felt the camp's scars ache anew, not on my body, but in my soul. Yet within the hurt, a seed of defiance took root. I wasn't the naive girl who'd left for the camp. I'd survived worse than betrayal. This pain, though searing, wouldn't break me. As Emily and Nathan exchanged vows, I stood, my chair scraping the floor. Eyes turned, but I didn't falter. I walked out, the cool night air a balm against my burning cheeks. The city stretched before me, vast and indifferent, but I felt a shift within. The Nora who'd dreamed of love was replaced by a woman who'd learned to endure. Emily's victory, Nathan's rejection, Lily's cruelty, they were wounds, but not fatal. I would find a way to reclaim my worth, to carve a path where their shadows couldn't reach. The how was unclear, but the resolve was iron, forged in the crucible of loss. The wedding hall glowed with a warmth that felt like mockery, its lanterns casting soft light on Emily's white gown as she stood beside Nathan, her smile a polished gem. The air buzzed with the chatter of the city's elite, their silk dresses and crisp suits a stark contrast to my faded blouse, patched from years in the labor camp. I sat at the farthest table, a shadow among strangers, my presence an afterthought. The whispers followed me, pity for the commander's fallen daughter, scorn for the limp that marked my steps. My family, seated at the head table, shone like a tableau of perfection. My father, stern and proud. My mother, elegant and doting. Emily, radiant as the bride. I was the blemish they ignored, my 15 years of sacrifice in the camp erased by their adoration for her. Lily's confession still burned in my mind. I made sure Nathan saw Emily, she'd said, her words a venom that poisoned the fragile hope I'd carried. My younger sister's betrayal, paired with Nathan's rejection and Emily's triumph, had left me raw, a wound exposed to the salt of this celebration. I watched Emily glide through the crowd, her laughter a melody that drew every eye. Beneath her grace, I glimpsed a calculated edge, a woman who'd secured her place through charm and quiet ruthlessness. She'd known Nathan was mine, yet pursued him, driven by a need to cement her status as the family's star. Her glances toward me held no guilt, only a flicker of triumph, as if my pain validated her victory. The toasts began, glasses clinking in honor of the couple. My father stood, his voice booming with pride. "To Emily, our pride, and Nathan, a son we welcome," he said, his eyes never straying to me. My mother dabbed her eyes, her smile reserved for her golden child. The room applauded, but I felt the weight of their indifference press harder. My hands trembled, the scars from the camp aching as if to remind me of what I'd given. I'd toiled so they could eat, nursed them through illness, shielded them from the camp's cruelty, yet here I was nothing. The injustice ignited something within me, a spark of defiance that refused to be snuffed out. I rose, my chair scraping against the polished floor. Eyes turned, murmurs rippling through the crowd. My heart pounded, but my camp-forged resilience steadied me. I limped toward the head table, my gaze locked on Emily. "Enough," I said, my voice cutting through the din. "You all praise Emily, but what about me? I carried our family in the camp while she wrote letters from her safe university. Nathan was mine, and you, Emily, took him. Lily, you pushed him to her. Why am I the one forgotten?" The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, a cry for the truth to be seen. The room fell silent, the weight of my accusation hanging heavy. Emily's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing with a flash of fear. She knew the truth could unravel her carefully crafted image. But she recovered swiftly, her voice soft yet venomous. "Nora, you're embarrassing yourself. Nathan chose me because we're equals. You're not. Let go, for your dignity." Her words were a blade, dressed in pity, designed to silence me. Nathan shifted uncomfortably, his guilt a shadow he couldn't hide. My father's face darkened, his military discipline snapping into place. "Nora, enough!" he barked, rising from his seat. "You will not ruin your sister's day." He signaled to Derek, his guard, who stepped forward with a grim nod. My mother, her eyes wide with disappointment, added, "Nora, a girl must protect her dignity. Bless their union and stop this nonsense." Her words echoed Emily's, a rehearsed dismissal that stung deeper than the camp's lash. Lily smirked from the sidelines, her malice a quiet victory. Derek's hand closed around my arm, his grip firm as he led me toward a side door. I didn't resist, my strength sapped by the weight of their rejection. The crowd's whispers grew louder, some pitying, others mocking. "Poor thing, lost her place," one said. "She's unhinged," another muttered. The door opened to a narrow storage room, its walls damp and shadowed. Derek pushed me inside, his face unreadable. "Commander's orders," he said, locking the door. The click echoed, sealing me in darkness. I sank to the cold floor, my back against the wall. The room smelled of mildew and neglect, a fitting cage for the daughter they'd discarded. My family's words replayed, Emily's calculated pity, my father's rage, my mother's disappointment, Lily's cruelty. They saw me as a burden, a flaw in their perfect narrative. Emily's fear of exposure had driven her to dismiss me, but her victory was built on my pain. I'd given everything to our family, yet they'd chosen her, the sister who'd never known the camp's weight. Tears came, hot and silent, but they weren't just grief. Beneath the hurt, a resolve was forming, sharper than ever. The camp taught me to endure and survive when hope was a luxury. This betrayal, though devastating, wouldn't break me. I was more than their forgotten daughter and Nathan's cast-off fiancé. The darkness of the storage room felt like the camp's endless nights, but I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd find a way to rise, to make them see me, not as a victim, but as a force they couldn't ignore. The how was a mystery, but the will was iron, forged in the crucible of their abandonment. The storage room's darkness was a suffocating shroud, its damp walls closing in like the labor camp's endless nights. The air reeked of mildew, thick with the scent of neglect, and the cold cement floor seeped through my thin blouse, chilling my bones. I huddled in a corner, my knees drawn to my chest, the echo of the wedding's laughter a distant taunt. My family's rejection, Emily's calculated dismissal, my father's rage, my mother's disappointment, Lily's malice, played in a relentless loop, each word a lash against my battered spirit. I was Nora Lee, the forgotten daughter locked away to preserve their perfect facade. For 7 days they left me there, as if my existence was a stain to be erased. The guard, Derek, slid a moldy steamed bun and a cup of foul-tasting water through a slot each morning, his footsteps fading without a word. My body, weakened by years of camp labor, rebelled. My limp ached, old injuries flaring with each shiver. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, a familiar foe from the camp, but this time, it was merciless. By the 3rd day, my vision blurred, the room spinning in a fever haze. I clawed at memories of Nathan's promises, my parents' pride, Emily's triumph, but they crumbled like ash. I was alone, my sacrifices meaningless to those I'd loved. On the 5th day, my lips cracked, tinged purple from dehydration. I whispered to the shadows, "Why me?" The question hung unanswered, a plea to a universe that seemed deaf. My strength waned, each breath a labor. I thought of the camp, where I'd carried my family's burdens, my youth traded for their survival. I'd believed love bound us, but love had been a lie. Emily's ambition, Nathan's betrayal, my parents' favoritism, they'd built their happiness on my ruin. The realization was a quiet knife, cutting deeper than hunger or cold. By the 7th day, my body was a hollow shell. I lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath me from sores that wouldn't heal, my pulse a faint stutter. As my eyes fluttered shut, a vision unfolded. A montage of my life's pain. The camp's scorching fields, my blistered hands, Nathan's averted gaze, Emily's smug smile. Then, a voice, soft yet resonant, pierced the void. "Your heart's regret binds you. Rewrite your fate." It wasn't human, but cosmic, a ripple from some unseen force offering a second chance. Light flared, warm and blinding, and I felt my soul tear free, as if the universe had heard my cry. I awoke with a gasp, my body young and unscarred, sprawled on my childhood bed in the military compound. The calendar on my desk read July 26, 1970, days before my father's reassignment to the labor camp. I was 15 again, my skin soft, my limp gone, but my mind carried the weight of a life already lived. The phantom pain of my death lingered, a tightness in my chest, but so did the voice's promise. I touched my face, tears streaming, not of grief, but of purpose. The camp, Nathan's betrayal, and my family's cruelty hadn't happened yet, but they would unless I acted. My room was as I'd left it, the air heavy with the scent of my mother's cooking drifting from the kitchen. My father's boots stood by the door, polished and proud, symbolizing the control I'd once feared. I rose, my legs steady, and caught my reflection in a small mirror. The girl staring back was fragile, but her eyes burned with a resolve forged in death. I wasn't the naive Nora who'd followed her family to ruin. I was a survivor, gifted a chance to reshape my destiny. The voice's words echoed, "Rewrite your fate." I didn't know how it had happened, whether a deity, a cosmic fluke, or my own desperate will had bent time. But I knew why, to reclaim the life they'd stolen. I sat at my desk, my hands trembling as I traced the calendar's date. 1 week remained before my parents received the relocation order, 4 days before the notice of my father's disgrace. It was enough time to plan, to escape the path that had led to my death. My family's voices carried from the dining room, my mother's gentle laugh, my father's stern command to set the table. They were the same, unchanged, blind to the daughter they'd one day discard. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. Hatred simmered, but I buried it, knowing anger alone wouldn't save me. The labor camp had taught me endurance, but my death had taught me cunning. I'd use my foreknowledge to outmaneuver them, to carve a future where I wasn't their sacrifice. Emily's ambition, my parents' favoritism, Nathan's weakness, they were flaws I could exploit. I thought of Lily, my younger sister, not yet the spiteful girl who'd sabotage me. Perhaps I could save her too, or at least try. The path ahead was uncertain, but my resolve was iron, forged in the crucible of my past life's pain. I stood, wiping my tears, and stepped toward the door. I'd fight for myself this time, and no one would lock me away. The dining room of our military compound home was a stage of normalcy, its polished table set with steaming dishes that carried the scent of my mother's care. It was July 26, 1970, and I, Nora Lee, sat at 15, my body unscarred but my mind heavy with the memories of a life not yet lived. The Cultural Revolution's shadow loomed, a time when loyalty to the state could turn families into strangers overnight. My father, Commander Lee, sat at the head, his crisp uniform a testament to his authority, his face stern as he sliced into a piece of braised pork. My mother, graceful in her apron, fussed over the plates, her gentle smile reserved for my older sister, Emily, whose absence at university was a constant topic of pride. I was the overlooked daughter, my past life sacrifices, 15 years in a labor camp, a broken engagement, a lonely death, burning beneath a facade of compliance. "Eat, Nora," my mother said, her voice soft as she placed a mound of stir-fried vegetables in my bowl. "You're too thin, and you're still growing." Her concern felt hollow, echoing the mother who'd later dismiss me at Emily's wedding. I stared at the food, my stomach churning from hunger and the weight of their betrayal. In my past life, I'd toiled to keep them alive in the camp, my youth traded for their survival, yet they'd crowned Emily their savior. My father's voice snapped me back. "What's wrong with you, girl? Food is a privilege, not to be wasted." His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, bore into me, demanding the discipline of a soldier's daughter. I gripped my chopsticks, my knuckles whitening. The urge to scream, to hurl their future cruelty in their faces was a fire in my chest. I saw it all, my father's rage as he locked me away, my mother's disappointment as she chose Emily, Nathan's rejection, Lily's malice. But I swallowed the flames, my past life's death teaching me that anger without strategy was a trap. "I'm not hungry," I said quietly, avoiding their gazes. My father's chopsticks clattered against the table, the sound a warning. He barked, "You'll eat or sit here all night. A soldier's child doesn't pick and choose like a spoiled brat. The words stung, but they also sharpened my resolve. In my past life, I'd bowed to his commands, desperate for his approval. Now, I saw his discipline for what it was: control, not love. My mother sighed, her hand brushing my arm. "Don't mind him, Nora, just eat slowly." Her touch, meant to soothe, only deepened my resentment. She'd stood by as they erased me, her love conditional on my obedience. I forced a bite, the vegetables tasteless, my throat tight with unspoken truths. Each swallow was a performance, a mask to hide the hatred simmering within. The room felt smaller, the air thick with the weight of their expectations. My father spoke of Emily, his voice softening. "She's at the top of her class, writing about her studies. She'll make us proud." My mother nodded, her eyes gleaming. "She's always been so driven, even as a child." Their words were a blade, carving out my place in their hearts. Safe in her university, Emily was their future, while I, the daughter who'd carried them through exile, was invisible. I kept my head down, my past life's pain a silent scream. I'd died for them, locked in a storage room, my body broken. Yet here, they saw only a girl who needed scolding. Beneath the table, my hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. The Cultural Revolution had turned neighbors into informants, families into pawns. My father's reassignment to the labor camp was days away, a decree that would shatter this facade of stability. I knew it, but they didn't. My weapon was my rebirth, a cosmic gift from a voice that promised I could rewrite my fate. I'd use my foreknowledge to escape, avoid the camp, Nathan's betrayal, and the darkness of the storage room, but I had to play my part and wear this mask until the moment was right. I finished my rice, but the grains were bitter with my restraint. "May I go to my room?" I asked, my voice steady, a soldier reporting to a superior. My father chewed slowly, his gaze assessing. "Go," he said finally, dismissing me with a wave. I stood, my movements deliberate, and walked to my room, feeling their eyes on my back. My mother's voice followed, soft and chiding. "She's just shy, dear. Please don't be so hard on her." My father's grunt was his only reply, their voices fading as I closed my door. In my room, I leaned against the wall, my breath ragged. The calendar on my desk marked the days until their downfall, a countdown to my freedom. I traced July 26th, my hand trembling. 4 days until the notice, 1 week until the reassignment. It was enough time to plan, to find a way out before they dragged me to the camp. The labor camp forged my endurance, death, and cunning. I wasn't the naive girl they expected, nor the broken woman I'd become. I was something new, a survivor with a second chance. I sat at my desk, my past life's pain a fuel that burned bright. Emily's ambition, my parents' favoritism, and Nathan's weakness were obstacles, but not insurmountable. I thought of Lily, my younger sister, not yet the spiteful girl who'd sabotage me. I could guide her, save her from her future pain. The path was unclear, but my resolve was unshakable. I'd rewrite my fate not for their approval, but for myself. The girl who'd died in the storage room was gone, replaced by a Nora who would fight, who would rise, who would never be forgotten again. The morning sun filtered through the military compound's narrow windows, casting long shadows across my room. It was July 27th, 1970, and the weight of my past life's memories pressed against my resolve. The Cultural Revolution had turned China into a crucible of suspicion, where a single misstep could send families like mine to labor camps. My father's reassignment loomed, a decree that would drag us to a brutal exile in 3 days. But I, Nora Lee, 15 and reborn with the knowledge of my future suffering, refused to be their sacrifice again. My death in a storage room, my body broken by betrayal, had forged a new me, one who would outmaneuver the family that discarded her. I slipped out after breakfast, my backpack slung over one shoulder, the calendar's date etched in my mind. My plan hinged on the Educated Youth Program, a government initiative sending urban youth to rural areas to learn from the peasants. It was a voluntary escape, a way to flee my parents' control before they forced me to the labor camp. My destination was Lily's house, my classmate and friend, whose cousin worked at the neighborhood committee overseeing the program. Lily, not yet the spiteful sister who'd sabotaged me in my past life, was my key to freedom. The compound's courtyard buzzed with soldiers drilling and children playing, a facade of order masking the era's chaos. I walked briskly, my heart pounding with the thrill of rebellion. Lily's house was a modest brick building, its door ajar. She greeted me with a shy smile, her ponytail bouncing as she waved me inside. "Nora, you're early. Want some tea?" Her warmth was genuine, a reminder of our bond before her future betrayal. I shook my head, my voice low. "Lily, I need your help. It's urgent." We sat in her cramped room, the air thick with the scent of drying laundry. I glanced at the door, ensuring privacy, then leaned closer. "I want to volunteer for the Educated Youth Program. Your cousin can process my application." Lily's eyes widened, her teacup pausing midair. "The countryside? Nora, that's no joke. It's hard work. Once you're in, there's no turning back." Her concern was genuine, but I saw a flicker of curiosity, a girl trapped in her family's expectations. I nodded, my tone firm. "I know. The country needs young people to build the rural areas. I want to answer that call." The words were a calculated echo of state propaganda, a shield to mask my true intent. In my past life, I'd learned the power of aligning with policy to avoid suspicion. Lily hesitated, then said, "My cousin's been struggling to meet the volunteer quota. She'd help, but why now, and why keep it from your parents?" Her question probed deeper, sensing my urgency. I reached into my backpack and pulled out a small cloth bag, its contents a treasure in these scarce times. A handful of hard candies, bought secretly by my mother against my father's frugal rules. I pressed it into Lily's hands, my voice soft but insistent. "This is for you. Please, don't tell my parents. I want to surprise them, to make them proud." The candies were a bribe, a gesture of trust to bind her to my secrecy. Lily's fingers closed around the bag, her eyes wide with surprise. "Nora, this is too much. Candy's rare, and your dad—" She trailed off, knowing his disdain for indulgence. "Keep it," I said, my smile masking the ache of sacrifice. "My sister's at college, so I'm the only kid at home. I have enough." It was a lie. My father's strictness left little room for luxuries, but the camp had taught me to trade for survival. Lily tucked the bag into her pocket, her reluctance giving way to agreement. "Okay, I'll talk to my cousin today. She can process it by tomorrow if you're sure." I nodded, relief flooding me. "I'm sure. Tell her I want it done fast, within 3 days." As we spoke, I studied Lily, her worn shoes and frayed blouse hinting at her family's struggles. In my past life, she'd grown bitter, her jealousy fueling her betrayal over Nathan. But now she was just a girl, overlooked like me, her potential stifled by duty to her siblings. I saw a chance to save her, to rewrite her fate alongside mine. I said, my voice softening, "You could come with me. The countryside's tough, but it's a way out. You don't have to stay here, always giving up for your family." Her eyes flickered with longing, but she shook her head. "My parents need me, my siblings. I can't leave them." I didn't push, knowing trust took time. The camp had taught me patience and my death strategy. "Just think about it," I said, standing to leave. "I'll be back tomorrow." As I stepped into the courtyard, the sun high and unforgiving, I felt a shift within. The candies were a small price for my freedom, a step toward a life where I wasn't my family's shadow. My parents' voices echoed in my mind, my father's scolding, my mother's pity. But they no longer held me. I was Nora, reborn, and this alliance with Lily was my first strike against their control. The compound's noise faded as I walked, my resolve a steady flame. Emily's ambition, my parents' favoritism, Nathan's betrayal. They were battles yet to come, but I was ready. The Educated Youth Program was my escape, a path to rewrite my fate. I thought of the cosmic voice that had given me this chance. Its promise was a fire in my veins. I wouldn't just survive. I'd thrive, and no one, not my family, not the revolution, would chain me again. The narrow streets of the military compound hummed with the rhythm of daily life. Soldiers marching, bicycles creaking, children shouting in the July heat. It was July 28th, 1970, and the Cultural Revolution's grip tightened like a noose, its purges and re-education campaigns fracturing families across China. I, 15, Nora Lee, armed with the memories of a tragic past life, walked purposefully toward Lily's house. My plan to join the Educated Youth Program, a state initiative sending urban youth to rural areas, was in motion, and my application was secured through Lily's cousin. But today, my mission was personal. I wanted to save Lily, my friend and future betrayer, from the oppressive fate I knew awaited her. Lily's house stood at the compound's edge, its brick facade weathered by years of neglect. I knocked, my backpack heavy with resolve. Lily opened the door, her smile hesitant, her eyes shadowed by a weariness I recognized from my past life's mirror. "Nora, you're back already," she said, ushering me inside. The room was cramped, cluttered with laundry and the faint smell of boiled cabbage. I glanced at her arm, noticing fresh bruises peeking from her sleeve, marks of her mother's feather duster, a punishment I'd learned about in my past life. My heart clenched, the pain of her future vivid, a forced marriage to a violent butcher, a lost child, a life of suffering. I said, "Lily, we need to talk," my voice low as I shut the door. She sat on a wobbly stool, her hands fidgeting. "Your cousin is processing my application." She nodded. "She said it'll be done tomorrow. You're going through with it." Her tone held awe and doubt, a girl trapped in her cage of duty. I took a deep breath, the weight of my past life's knowledge guiding me. "I am. And I was hoping you could come with me. The countryside's hard, but it's a way out of this." I gestured to her arm, my eyes softening. "You don't deserve to live like this." Lily's face paled, her hand covering the bruises. "It's nothing, Nora, just... my siblings got into my things and Mom was mad." Her voice trembled, a lie to shield her pain. I knelt beside her, my camp-forged resilience steadying me. "It's not nothing. I know what it's like to be overlooked, to give everything and get nothing back. In a few years, your family will marry you off to a man who'll hurt you worse than this. I've seen it." My words carried the weight of my rebirth, a truth I couldn't fully explain. Lily's eyes widened, fear mingling with disbelief. "How do you know that?" I hesitated, the cosmic voice that had granted my second chance echoing in my mind. I couldn't tell her I'd lived another life, died in a storage room, seen her future misery. Instead, I said, "I do. Your parents expect you to sacrifice for your siblings, but you're a kid too. You deserve a chance to live for yourself." Her gaze dropped, her fingers tracing the stool's edge. "I can't leave. Mom needs me to cook, clean, and watch the kids. If I go, she'll fall apart." Her loyalty was a chain I'd once worn for my family. The room felt smaller, the air thick with her indecision. I thought of my past life, how I'd bowed to my parents' demands, only to be discarded. The labor camp had taught me endurance, my death strategy. I wouldn't let Lily repeat my mistakes. "Lily," I said, my voice firm but gentle, "you're not their servant. Your siblings are old enough to help. When you were their age, you were already doing chores, weren't you? Give them a chance to grow, like you had to. Or do you plan to carry them forever?" My words struck a chord, her eyes flickering with a spark of defiance. She shook her head, her ponytail swaying. "I'll get married someday and have my own family. I can't always be responsible for them." The words were a revelation, a crack in her resignation. I pressed forward, my camp-honed instinct sensing an opening. "Exactly. The countryside's your way out. The Educated Youth Program isn't just work. It's a chance to learn, to be someone. We'll go together, like sisters. I'll have your back." Her lips parted, a flicker of hope battling her fear. "My parents won't agree. They'll say I'm selfish." I stood, my resolve a steady flame. "Then we'll make them see it's not selfish. It's answering the nation's call, a duty they can't argue with." I used the revolution's rhetoric, a shield I'd learned in my past life, to navigate its dangers. Lily looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "You're different, Nora. Braver. I wish I could be like that." Her words stirred a warmth in me, a sign of my growth. I wasn't just the girl who'd died. I was becoming a guide, a protector. "You can be," I said. "Just say yes." She bit her lip, her gaze drifting to the bruises on her arm. "I need time to think," she said finally. I nodded, knowing pressure could break our bond. "Think fast. I'm leaving in 2 days. If you change your mind, find me." I squeezed her hand, then stepped outside, the compound's noise washing over me. The sun was high, its heat a reminder of the camp's relentless fields. But I wasn't afraid. My alliance with Lily was a step toward freedom, and my offer to her reflects the strength I'd gained. I'd rewrite my fate, maybe hers, defying the family and era that sought to crush us. The air in our military compound home was thick with tension, the dim glow of a single lamp casting shadows across the main hall. It was late on July 29th, 1970, and the Cultural Revolution's relentless purges hung over us like a storm about to break. I, Nora Lee, stood at 15, my heart pounding with the weight of my past life's memories. 15 years in a labor camp, betrayal by my family, a lonely death in a storage room. My father's reassignment to a brutal camp loomed, its notice due tomorrow, but I had set my escape in motion through the Educated Youth Program. My parents would learn of my defiance tonight, and I would bend their will to secure my freedom. The day had begun with a knock at our door, my father's old comrade delivering grim news. "You've been reported. The relocation order's coming." My mother had sobbed in my room, clinging to me, her fears spilling out. "Nora, what will we do? Emily's in college, and you've only just finished middle school." Her words echoed my past life, when she'd mourned Emily's future while dismissing mine. I'd stayed silent, my resolve hardening. At midnight, my father called a family meeting, his voice a command that brooked no refusal. "Everyone, out here, now." I entered the hall, my steps measured, my face a mask of obedience. My father sat like a general, his uniform creased from a day of desperate negotiations. My mother, eyes red from crying, clutched a handkerchief. The drafty room felt like a courtroom, my fate on trial. My father's gaze fixed on me, his voice low. "Nora, I've tried pulling strings, but the reassignment's inevitable. We need to protect Emily's future. I'll publish a notice to sever ties with her so our disgrace won't taint her college prospects." The words were a blade, slicing through the illusion of family. In my past life, I'd been crushed by their favoritism, agreeing to follow them to the camp. Now I saw their plan for what it was, sacrificing me to save Emily. My mother's voice trembled, a rehearsed protest. "Is that wise? Nora's only 15. Sending her with us. It's too much." Her eyes betrayed her, a glint of hope that I'd comply. I stood silent, my past life's pain fueling my strategy. I'd learned from Emily's cunning, her ability to manipulate with tears. Tonight, I'd use their tactics against them. My father turned to me, his tone softening, a rare crack in his armor. "Nora, your mother and I are getting old. If we're sent away, we can't leave you alone. You'll come with us." The words were dressed as care, but I saw the truth. They needed me to bear their burdens, as I had in the camp. I blinked, letting tears well, my face angled to catch the lamplight, a trick I'd learned from Emily. "Dad? Mom?" I said, my voice breaking. "I understand. But I've already applied to the Educated Youth Program. I wanted to surprise you and honor our family by serving the nation." The room stilled, my father's eyes narrowing. "What?" he growled, his fist clenching. "When did you do this?" Before I could answer, a knock interrupted. Lily's cousin, her face stern, holding a clipboard. "Commander Lee," she said, "I'm here to confirm Nora's selection for the youth program. She leaves in 2 days. You've raised a fine daughter answering the country's call." Her words were a challenge, laced with the revolution's rhetoric. Refusal could be seen as disloyalty, a dangerous accusation in these times. My father's face darkened, his authority challenged. "This wasn't discussed," he snapped, but Lily's cousin stood firm. "She applied 4 days ago, wanting to make you proud. The paperwork needs your signature." She held out a form, her gaze unwavering. My mother's tears fell anew, her voice pleading. "Nora, why? Did you know about the reassignment? Tell us the truth. You don't want to suffer with us?" Her accusations stung, but I kept my tears flowing, my voice steady. "I only wanted to serve and bring honor to you both." My father stared at the form, his hand hovering over the pen. Refusing could brand him a traitor to the state's policies. I seized the moment, my voice soft but pointed. "Dad, you've always taught me to put the nation first. If you stop me, people might question your loyalty. You wouldn't want that, not now." The veiled threat landed, his jaw tightening. He signed with a heavy stroke, his eyes burning into mine. "We'll talk later," he growled, dismissing Lily's cousin. As she left, I followed, my heart racing. I used my father's name at the newspaper office to revise his notice, changing it to sever ties with both daughters, not just Emily. The act was a gamble, its consequences severe, public shame, social scrutiny, but it guaranteed my freedom. My parents' silence was a storm back home, but I'd won. The girl who died in the storage room was gone, replaced by a Nora who wielded cunning like a weapon, ready to face the countryside and rewrite her fate. The countryside stretched before me, a patchwork of golden fields and mud brick homes under a boundless sky. It was 1971, and the Cultural Revolution's fervor still echoed, its educated youth program scattering city dwellers like me to rural China to learn from the peasants. I, Nora Lee, 16 and reborn with the scars of a past life, had escaped my family's grasp through this program, severing ties with them to avoid a labor camp's horrors. The village I'd been assigned to was kinder than the camp of my memories, its people weathered but warm. Yet my public disownment, a newspaper notice cutting ties with my parents and sister Emily, cast a shadow, its consequences rippling through my new life. The youth settlement was a cluster of simple dorms, its air thick with the scent of straw and sweat. I shared a room with other volunteers. Their chatter was a mix of homesickness and resolve. My first weeks were grueling, planting rice under a scorching sun, my hands blistered anew. Villagers whispered about me, the commander's daughter who'd renounced her family. Cold-hearted, some muttered, their eyes wary. Others, moved by my work ethic, offered nods of respect. The stigma stung, but my past life's death in a storage room had taught me to endure judgment. I focused on survival, and my resolve was a quiet fire. One evening, a village doctor, old Chen, summoned me to his clinic, a shack lined with jars of herbs. "You're steady under pressure," he said, his voice gruff. "Please help me with a patient." A child no older than 6 lay feverish, her mother wringing her hands. I followed Chen's instructions, grinding herbs and cooling the girl's brow, my camp-honed calm guiding me. When her fever broke, the mother clasped my hands, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, miss." The moment cracked something in me, my bitterness easing. In the camp, I'd saved my parents. Here, I saved a stranger, and it felt like a purpose. Chen took me under his wing, teaching me to stitch wounds and diagnose ailments. I soaked up his knowledge, my evenings spent poring over his tattered medical texts. The village, poor in resources, valued my growing skill. When my mother sent letters, pleading for help as my father's health faltered in the labor camp, I reported them to the village head. I said my family severed ties, my voice steady despite the ache. "I'm not responsible." The letters stopped, but whispers grew. Some villagers called me ungrateful, others admired my resolve. The severance's weight was clear. I was free, but an outcast to some, my loyalty questioned. The work grounded me, and each healed patient a step toward redemption. I felt a shift one night, tending a farmer's broken arm. My past life's pain, Emily's betrayal, Nathan's rejection, my parents' favoritism, was still there, but it no longer defined me. I was building something new, a life where I was valued for my actions, not my family's name. The camp forged my endurance, death, and cunning, but this village forged my heart. I laughed with other volunteers, shared meals, and found joy in small victories, my bitterness fading like a distant storm. After 3 years, the village head called me to his home, his face lined with pride. "You've cut ties with your family, Nora. What's your plan?" His question was a nod to a rare opportunity, a university recommendation through the workers' peasant soldiers' path, a cultural revolution policy rewarding rural service. I thought of the National College entrance exams, still years from reinstatement, and my old dreams of poetry crushed by the camp. "As long as the village needs me, I'll stay," I said. "But if this chance lets me learn more to help better, I'll take it." The head nodded, impressed. "You're one of us now." The recommendation came, and I left for a workers' peasant soldiers' university to study medicine, my heart torn between the village and the future. The severance's stigma followed, classmates whispered of my disloyalty, but my skills earned respect. I studied fiercely, driven by the child's fevered face, the farmer's grateful nod. In my past life, Nora died for a family that forgot her. This Nora lived for herself and those she could save. The university's halls were a new battlefield, but I was ready, my resolve unshakable, my fate rewritten with each step. The village hummed with the rhythm of harvest season, rice fields swaying under a crisp autumn breeze. It was 1975, and the Cultural Revolution's fervor had softened, though its policies, like the Educated Youth Program, still shaped lives across China. I, Nora Lee, now 20, had forged a new life in this rural haven, my past life's horrors, labor camp suffering, family betrayal, a lonely death, receded to a distant ache. As a village doctor, trained through years of study and a workers' peasant soldiers' university, I was a pillar of the community, my hands steady with purpose. Yet, the severance of ties with my family, publicized in a 1970 newspaper, lingered as a quiet stigma, some villagers still whispering of my cold heart. I bore it, my worth proven by each life I saved. One October morning, a new group of youth volunteers arrived, their faces mixed with fear and resolve. I was distributing medical supplies at the settlement's edge when a familiar figure stepped from the crowd. Lily, my childhood friend, is now 18, her ponytail replaced by a practical braid, her eyes bright with relief. "Nora!" she called, rushing forward. I embraced her, my heart swelling. In my past life, Lily had been crushed by her family's demands, married to a violent butcher, her spirit broken. Now, she was here, a spark of the girl I'd urged to escape 5 years ago. We sat in my clinic, a modest shack lined with herb jars and a cot, the air warm with the antiseptic scent. "How did you get here?" I asked, pouring tea. Lily's smile faltered, her hands tracing the cup's rim. "My parents planned to marry me off to a pig butcher to fund my brother's wedding. I begged my cousin to sign me up for the youth program. She remembered you and said you'd inspired her to help me." Her voice trembled, but her gaze was steady, a girl who'd chosen freedom over duty. I felt a surge of pride, my past life's knowledge validated. I'd planted the seed, and she'd grown. "I was scared," Lily admitted, "but you were right. I wasn't my sibling's keeper. I deserved a life too." Her words echoed my defiance, a mirror to the Nora who'd rewritten her fate. I squeezed her hand, my camp-forged resilience now a beacon for her. "You did the right thing. No one can use you now." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "I thought of you, how brave you were. I wanted that strength." Her trust deepened our bond, a sisterhood forged in shared struggle. The village embraced Lily, her quick hands and warm laugh winning hearts. I pushed her to study, buying high school textbooks with my meager savings. I said the college entrance exams might return, my past life's foresight guiding me. "Be ready." Lily, hesitant but eager, pored over math and literature by lamplight, her determination a quiet fire. I tutored her, and our evenings were filled with equations and dreams. The clinic was a haven of hope. Her progress was my joy, a testament to the impact of my second chance. 1977, the National College entrance exams were reinstated, a seismic shift after years of suspension. Lily registered, her hands trembling as she filled out the form. I stood beside her, my heart a mix of pride and nerves. "You've got this," I said, my voice steady. She failed the first attempt, then the second, her spirits dipping. But I saw the girl who'd defied her family, and I wouldn't let her falter. "Keep going," I urged, "and my university success is proof of persistence. You're stronger than you know." She passed on her third try in 1979, earning a spot at a prestigious medical school, surpassing my workers' peasant soldier's degree. We celebrated in the village square, with lanterns glowing and villagers toasting with homemade rice wine. Lily, radiant, hugged me tight. "I wouldn't be here without you, Nora." Her words were a balm, healing the wounds of my past life's betrayals. I'd rewritten my fate and helped her rewrite hers, a shared triumph that felt like defiance against the era's cruelties. The village head clapped my shoulder, his pride evident. "You've changed lives, Nora, not just hers." The whispers of my severance faded, my actions louder than old gossip. Lily's departure for university was bittersweet, her braids swinging as she boarded the bus. "Write to me," I said, my voice thick. She nodded, her eyes promising connection. I returned to the clinic, my heart full. The Cultural Revolution had tried to break us, but we'd risen, two girls who'd carved paths from pain. In my past life, Nora died alone. This Nora lived for others, and her strength is a legacy of Lily's success. The future was uncertain, but I was ready. My fate was a canvas I'd paint with purpose. The village bloomed with spring vitality in 1985. its rice fields green under a gentle sun. The Cultural Revolution's scars lingered, but China was shifting, its policies softening as reform whispered new possibilities. Nora Lee, now 30, had built a life as the village's barefoot doctor. My clinic, a healing sanctuary. My past life's pain, 15 years in a labor camp, betrayal by my family, death in a storage room, was a distant echo, overshadowed by purpose. The public severance of ties with my parents and sister Emily, announced in a 1970 newspaper, had branded me an outcast to some, but my work earned respect, the whispers of a disloyal daughter fading against the lives I saved. One April afternoon, as I bandaged a farmer's hand, two figures appeared at the village's edge, their silhouettes ragged against the horizon. Emily, my once radiant sister, and Ethan, my former fiancé, stood weathered and worn, their clothes patched, their faces etched with hardship. Emily's fair skin was tanned, her eyes wild with rage and desperation. Ethan, his scholarly charm dulled, gripped her arm, his gaze heavy with guilt. I froze, my past life's wounds flaring. Emily's theft of Ethan, her smug triumph at their wedding, my family's rejection. Yet, I stood firm, my clinic's walls a fortress. "Nora!" Emily's voice cracked as she lunged forward, her nails clawing at my hands. "Mom and Dad are dead! Why didn't you go with them to the labor camp? If you had, I'd be the commander's daughter, admired by all." Her words revealed a truth I hadn't seen in my past life. Emily's ambition was fueled by fear, a desperate need to secure her status as the favored child. She'd pursued Ethan not just for love, but to anchor her place in a world that could turn on her. Her memories of our past life somehow awakened, twisted her grief into rage. I pulled back, my hands stinging, but my voice was cold. "You made your choices, Emily. You took Ethan and stayed safe in college while I suffered. Please don't blame me for your fall." Ethan stepped forward, his face drawn. "Nora, please. Emily is unstable, broken by the camp. We came to ask for your help with their rehabilitation." His plea was hollow, a shadow of the man who'd betrayed me. I learned their story. When I'd severed ties, Emily was investigated, her college letters exposed. She joined our parents in the camp, and her degree was unfinished. After defying his family, Ethan followed her, dropping out to share her exile. My father died of an untreated wound, and my mother by suicide months later. The news of my parents' deaths landed like a stone, heavy but distant. I felt no tears, only the weight of their past favoritism. "They're gone," I said, my tone flat. "I'm a village doctor, not a politician. I can't help you." Emily's face contorted, her nails grazing my neck as she lunged again. "You stole my life!" she screamed, her voice breaking. I didn't flinch, my camp-forged resilience a shield. Her fear had driven her to betray me, but I owed her nothing. The villagers, watching from a distance, murmured, some with pity, others with scorn for my refusal. The severance's stigma lingered, a reminder of my choice to prioritize myself. Ethan held Emily back, his eyes pleading. "Nora, you've changed. You were kind and passionate. What happened to that girl?" I met his gaze, my heart steady. "She died, Ethan, locked away by you and them. I'm not that Nora anymore." His disappointment was palpable, but it didn't sway me. Emily's instability, Ethan's regret, they were their burdens, not mine. I turned to the villagers. "Take her to the county hospital. She needs care I can't give." As they led her away, her cries fading, I felt a quiet release. My past life's pain had no hold on me. I'd built a life beyond their reach. The confrontation left ripples. Some villagers distanced themselves, whispering of my hardness, while others praised my strength, my clinic busier than ever. I stood taller, my purpose clearer. Helping Lily, healing the village, had given me a family worth more than the one I'd lost. My past life's Nora had been a victim. This Nora was a survivor, her heart forged in loss, but open to new bonds. Emily's desperation, Ethan's guilt, they were shadows of a past I'd outgrown, my fate rewritten in the lives I touched. The village lay quiet under a starlit sky in 1986, its fields a tapestry of green and gold, whispering of renewal. China was awakening from the Cultural Revolution's long shadow, with reforms opening doors to a future once unimaginable. Nora Lee, now 31, stood at the heart of this rural haven, my clinic a beacon of healing. My past life's scars, 15 years in a labor camp, betrayal by my family, death in a storage room, had faded to a quiet hum, drowned out by the life I'd built. The public severance of ties with my parents and sister Emily, declared in a 1970 newspaper, still lingered in hushed gossip. Still, my work as a barefoot doctor had earned me a place of respect, the stigma overshadowed by gratitude. One spring evening, a lone figure appeared at the door as I sorted herbs in my clinic. My former fiancé, Ethan, stood weathered and gaunt, his once scholarly charm eroded by years of hardship. His eyes, heavy with regret, met mine. "Nora," he said, his voice low. "Emily's dead. She passed last month, her health broken by the camp." The words landed softly like leaves on a still pond. In my past life, Emily's betrayal, stealing Ethan, basking in our parents' favor, had crushed me. Now, I felt only a distant pang, my heart armored by years of purpose. "I'm sorry," I said, my tone neutral, "but there's nothing left to say." Ethan stepped closer, his hands trembling. "She was your last family, Nora. I know you severed ties, but I thought—" He trailed off, searching my face. The severance had cost me dearly, villagers' whispers of disloyalty, the weight of being an outcast, but it had freed me from a family that saw me as a burden. I stood firm, my clinic's shelves a testament to the life I'd carved. "Family isn't blood, Ethan. It's the people who value you. I found mine here." My words were calm, a truth honed by years of healing others and myself. He shifted, his gaze dropping. "I made a mistake, Nora. I should have waited for you like I promised. I heard you never married. Do we have a chance?" His question hung in the air, a plea wrapped in nostalgia. I saw him as he was in my past life, charming, weak, swayed by Emily's ambition. I thought of the storage room, my body broken by their choices, and the cosmic voice that had given me a second chance to rewrite my fate. "There's no path back," I said, my voice steady. "People move forward, Ethan. I have." He flinched, his shoulders sagging, but I felt no guilt. The Nora who'd loved him had died, replaced by a woman who chose herself. I turned to my work, the clinking of glass vials a rhythm of purpose. Ethan lingered, then left without another word, his footsteps fading into the night. The village, alive with cricket songs, seemed to breathe with me, its embrace contrasting with the family I'd lost. The stigma of severance had marked me, but it had also liberated me, and my reputation was rebuilt through lives saved and bonds forged. I stepped outside, the cool air brushing my skin. My savings had bought a small plot of land, and my clinic was now a permanent fixture, its walls lined with gratitude notes from villagers. Lily, my friend and chosen sister, worked at the county hospital nearby, and her medical degree was a triumph we'd shared. Our pinky promise from childhood, sealed in 1970, had held. Her letters arrived weekly, her visits monthly, our bond a lifeline. The Cultural Revolution had tried to break us, but we'd risen, two women who'd defied a world that sought to bind us. I looked to the horizon, where the fields met the stars. In my past life, 1985 was the year I'd died, forgotten by a family that favored Emily. It was the year I lived fully, my clinic a home, my work a legacy. The villagers' respect, Lily's friendship, my strength, they were my family, worth more than the one I'd severed. The whispers of disloyalty still surfaced, but they were drowned by calls of Dr. Nora from children and elders alike. My past life's pain was a shadow, my rebirth a light that guided me forward. I walked back to my clinic, my steps sure. The cosmic gift of my second chance had been a chance to choose myself, to build a life unbound by betrayal. I'd faced Emily's rage, Ethan's regret, and emerged whole. The future stretched ahead not as a battle, but as a canvas for healing, for connection, for a Nora who lived without regret. I closed the clinic door, the stars above a promise of tomorrow, my fate rewritten in the quiet strength of moving forward.